Ted O'Brien, welcome and congratulations on becoming Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Great to be with you again.
Is your nuclear policy dead?
Well, there's no doubt that as we now review our pathway forward, all policies, including our energy policy, will be under review. I think that's what the Australian people would expect. And Sarah, we'll take our time to do it. We need to be driven by the data, the evidence, and we need to take the time to go out and listen to the Australian people and do so in a very humble way. The Australian people did send a message on the 3rd of May, and as a party, we understand that. What we now need to understand is where the Australian people are at, because we need to meet people where they're at. And that requires us to listen and to learn so that the Liberal Party can reflect modern Australia as we move forward.
All right, now we've heard you and your colleagues say listen, learn a lot. You were, however, the architect and spokesman for the nuclear policy. So what's your view? Where is the nuclear policy up to?
So, Sarah, you may have heard us say we're going to be listening a lot, and today is day one of doing that. So, to be honest, you're going to hear us saying that a lot more. And the reason is we need to have big ears on. We need to be humble enough to recognise that the Australian people had something to say on the 3rd of May, but we have to get to the bottom of what that is. And we will do so in a very open and humble way. And that includes with nuclear energy, that includes with the energy policy moreover, and right across the policy suite. But can I tell you, Sarah, what really is uniting us as a party room under Sussan Ley?
Well, hold on. Let me just stay with this for a moment. Yes, let me just stay with this for the moment, because everyone saw you as both architect and spokesman. Let's be realistic about this. This was your coal to nuclear policy. In the extremely unlikely scenario where you win the next election, it will be too late for a large-scale nuclear build-out to replace coal. So where is your nuclear policy now with that realistic timeline in mind?
So, Sarah, you put a fair few views in that question, and I thank you for it, because I think you too should participate in what we have ahead of us, which is listening to the Australian people. People will have views, just like the view you just put, that you think that if it were taken forward, it might be too late. We'll be listening to all of this as we recalibrate our policies moving forward. But can I tell you what we won't do, Sarah? We're not going to rush this. Our priority is to get it right. And if I can, Sarah, I went to say before, the Liberal Party believes in freedom, in equality, in a fair go. We believe with rights come commensurate responsibilities. With effort comes reward. We believe in the individual, the family, the community, enterprise and entrepreneurship. Now, these are the fundamental beliefs of the Liberal Party. This is what unites us as a party room. And as we now engage with the Australian public and learn the lessons from what has been a bruising election, we will ensure that we leverage those values so that what we take to the next election is an agenda which is values-led, is future-focused, is economically driven, and is anchored to a positive and clear vision for Australia's future.
All right, now that's
what our priority is right now.
Let's just come back, because you suggested there that I was expressing a view. I wasn't expressing a view. I was putting to you the proposition that even in the unlikely scenario where the coalition were to win the next election, it would be too late to build a set of large nuclear reactors to replace coal-fired power stations. So I want to be crystal clear about this. Are you saying it's still possible for nuclear reactors in Australia to replace ageing coal-fired power stations?
So, Sarah, so I can be as clear as you have been, we are at this stage not saying that any policy is out and gone, nor are we saying that any policy is accepted and locked in. Our job right now is to ensure that we are understanding the message that the Australian people has sent us. And that means we need to engage with Australians, listen to Australians. And that's what we will be doing, with a big dose of humility, I might say.
Let me put a different question to you in this area. When asked about climate change during the campaign, Peter Dutton, in one of the leaders' debate, asked about climate change, said, "I'm not a scientist," suggesting that he didn't understand climate science fully. What do you understand about the science of climate change?
So, firstly, I don't think it's appropriate for me to be speaking about, what Peter Dutton was suggesting at the time. Of course, Peter has and can speak for himself in that regard. But Sarah, when it comes to the issue of climate change, I think that most Australians, like me, recognise that climate change is a real issue. We recognise the threat to not just our broader environment, but indeed to the economy unless we tackle climate change in the right way. My personal view is that what has held Australia back for too many years has been an unnecessary debate on the question of why act on climate change. The real question we need to answer, Sarah, is how do we act on climate change? And this is why the real area of debate should be on engineering and economics. It shouldn't be a debate about whether or not climate change is happening today, whether or not there needs to be action taken. Of course there needs to be action taken. The question is, what is the best pathway? And something that I put previously on your program, I put throughout the campaign to Labor, was they've got a plan, but they still cannot tell the Australian people how much their plan will cost.
All right, let's just
I think this is a real issue.
Let's just stick with you for the moment. You've made your case clear on climate change. You accept the science of climate change. How important is it to get to net zero as quickly as possible?
Oh, look, I think it's critical that we reduce emissions as quickly as possible, but it has to be done in a balanced way, Sarah. There are always a need to see balance. And when I talk about balancing here, I'm talking about the need for us to keep prices down. Right now, Australians are paying among the highest electricity prices in the world. And we also need to have a balance when it comes to the objective of energy security.
Yep. So,
a strong sovereign nation must have energy security.
So to get clear,
all those objectives, to allow me to finish, Sarah, all those objectives have to be balanced together with the need to drive down emissions.
All right,
and that is what is going to be key.
To be clear, the position of the Liberal Party at the moment is that you will not withdraw from the Paris Agreement. You will not cut loose the net zero target.
So again, I bring you back to where our conversation started, Sarah, because that question goes to what is the future policy of the coalition.
But what are you advising your colleagues?
Sarah,
because they must be asking for your advice, given your previous portfolio.
Sarah, if you don't mind, why don't I answer the question you just previously asked, and then I'll get to that one, if that's okay. So when it comes to policies, including climate and energy policies, they will all be decided in due course. But right now, we are saying that the Liberal Party is going to be engaging and listening to the Australian people because we've only just had an election. We're going to be leveraging the values which unite us because Liberal values are Australian values. No policy is definitively in or definitively out. It would be premature to do so. Now, that applies to any policy area that we might discuss this evening.
Ted O'Brien, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Sarah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.